Disney has a very exciting week this week, and Lucasfilm is one of the problems causing them to have more excitement than they probably want. But it's not just Mandalorian drama that's on the way, folks. We've got far more on Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy. I sense a pattern. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel that explains entertainment, keeps you ahead of the culture curve, and by golly, we have fun while we do it. How do we have fun? Well, we have excellent panelists like Lauren Connor on with us. Lauren, it's always a pleasure when you're on. I look forward to these conversations. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
Now, folks, as we get into this video, please note that at the end, Lauren is going to have a special commentary on some of the dialogue we received on the last video, so don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss his thoughts on that. But folks, let's get started. And if you clicked on this, you were looking for Mandalorian news. We're going to get there in just literally a few minutes. Hang tight, though, because this does tie in. This is an article from yesterday out of Forbes. It says Indiana Jones whips up $130 million loss for Disney. It is by Caroline Reed. And the fascinating thing about this, Lauren, is that it lines up almost exactly with what Valiant Renegade had been saying. Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny failed to cover its costs at the box office, according to financial statements released on Friday, which show that Disney spent $134 million more on making the movie than it is understood to have received in ticket sales. But Lauren, that's just talking about the production costs. It's not taking into account the marketing costs at all. And that's no fault of Caroline Reed. She is an awesome writer over at Forbes. Highly recommend her articles. But she can only look at the production stuff. If we consider the costs of the marketing and all that combined together, what we find out, Lauren, is that this thing lost probably about $250 million minimum. And by the way, if we go down and find out how much Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny cost, it was an eye-watering $387.2 million. This is very close to what Valiant Renegade was saying last year when he used tax documents from the UK to figure out it was going to be what he estimated $373 million. Now, why is that important? Well, because the mainstream outlets out there were declaring it had a $250 million budget, or a $280 at the most. And Valiant was saying, no, that's nowhere close. Caroline Reed has confirmed it. Folks, you can also read more about how this lines up exactly with what Valiant Renegade has said by going to thatparkplace.com, the little website that could. And we've got an article out there right now that even has the original video by Valiant Renegade showing that the proof is in the pudding indeed. Now, Lauren, we're going to talk about The Mandalorian literally in just a minute. The reason we're going here first with Indiana Jones is simply because there is a pattern of production failures when it comes to Lucasfilm. So I want to give you the chance. I don't know that we'll ever cover Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny again. I can't see how. I mean, this seems like this is the end. What are your thoughts as we exit now any real analysis? I mean, we've got all the facts now. It's all laid bare. It's one of the biggest flops of all time. It's a sad way to end a franchise that you and I both absolutely loved in the 80s and 90s. So your final thoughts on that?
It's really sad. I mean, this is Star Wars is what I typically talk about, and Han Solo is my favorite character in the Star Wars series. But Indiana Jones is probably my favorite movie character. And I hold those movies in just as high a regard as I do Star Wars. And it's heartbreaking to know that he's kind of going out on this note, and that they spent that kind of an eye-watering amount of money.
It's crazy.
It's astronomical. It's so reckless that I can't even begin to understand how it got to that point. It's just a tragedy all the way around.
Now, Lauren, the beautiful thing, though, is that, of course, the original movies still stand. So far, Disney has not gone back and modded them or changed them or edited them. We're not trying to give you ideas, Kathleen. Don't do it.
But I'm sure they'd want to do an awful lot with Temple of Doom.
Yes, well, and it's my favorite. I love Temple of Doom, which I'm very rare that most people don't say Temple of Doom is their favorite, but I do. The original three, though, they're wonderful. It's one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Only, I think, bested by Lord of the Rings. But Lauren, the reason that we've got The Mandalorian as the topic today and not Indy is because we've got a scoop here. We've got an official scoop right here on the Pro Channel. Scooping and scooping, it's what we do. And that scoop is, Lauren, that according to a source who has in the past alleged to be on the production team for The Mandalorian, this person has been absolutely on point, without failure, now for months and months, sending me small blurbs of information, and every time they're true. So I don't know what to do with that except just say, well, we're going to start just flat out reporting what this person sends. Lauren, this person is saying that The Mandalorian right now, pre-production is not going as quickly as had been anticipated, and that the start, which was supposed to be at the end of May, beginning of June, probably going to slip to late summer. And there's a particular reason of interest for that. And it is that if The Mandalorian slips to late summer, then the majority of the production is going to possibly be greatly hampered by the IA strike on the horizon. So, Lauren, when are we done with this? I mean, how many more productions can Lucasfilm do that are hampered and slowed and delayed? And I mean, this is a movie that is taking the slot of the Rey movie that they could not put into production. I mean, you got to remember that this is not even the movie they were going to be making this year. They just it's a Mandalorian season that they're going to change into a movie because Rey couldn't be made.
And what you're talking about is pre-production and production. That's not even post. So you're talking about being at least a year and a half out, at which point season 3 will have been gone for 2 years. I think if I were probably in Disney's shoes, what I'd be looking at right now is that there's no viable way to continue any of these franchises, I don't think. Indiana Jones is dead. Star Wars is dead. Willow is dead. Those are the properties that Lucasfilm held. The only value that you have left in that studio is ILM. So if it were me, I'd be seriously thinking about just shuttering all parts of Lucasfilm except ILM for your special effects work for other movie houses.
And the ILM side, Lauren, we've heard now from another source that there's a significant DEI issue that may be hampering ILM now. So, I mean, it just never stops. But, Lauren, I guess what I would ask is, are
Skywalker Sound too? I mean, that's kind of where we're at. And this is one of the reasons why Disney Star Wars is an abject failure, is that for Star Wars to continue to succeed, you have to have the generational capture. That's what allows it to continue to roll along in between the movies. And generally speaking, you have a trilogy. It takes about 6 to 7 years to produce. And then you go dormant for a little while until you've hit about a decade, maybe 12 years after the last release. And then you have a revival. That's kind of how that's worked so far in the Star Wars chronology of producing these films. These last sequel trilogy movies, they did not gain any kind of critical mass. And because of that, you're not going to be able to make the nostalgia play at the typical 10 to 12 year point afterwards. It's why Star Wars is now in the position that Flash Gordon is. It will be a nostalgia property for certain people who grew up with it and were fans of it, but it's going to become ever more irrelevant. I don't think there's anything they can do to arrest that at this point.
Lord, I don't remember Flash Gordon, though, ever being disparaged and turned into a hopeless hobbit living on his own and killed by force exhaustion. I mean, you get my drift. I mean, at least Flash Gordon wasn't decimated at the end of its run by a bunch of loons who wanted to utterly change it.
No, but one thing that, I suppose you could take a positive out of this, which is that what George wanted to make was a Flash Gordon movie, and because he couldn't get the rights, he came up with Star Wars. So now maybe what we have to look forward to at some point in the distant future is that some fan of the series at some point in the future becomes a filmmaker, wants to make a movie, but can't get the rights to Star Wars. He'll come up with his own new property, his own new story, and maybe we'll get something that's worthy of that crown that takes the hero's journey seriously.
So I'm trying to think, Lauren, what is the way, let's say that you clean house at Lucasfilm and in 5 years you're ready to reboot somehow, some way. I don't know I'm trying to think how they could possibly salvage it. But this Mandalorian idea of coming back in 2026 now at the earliest, which that's crazy. You
Mhm.
know, the idea that you're then going to go to 2028 and 2030 with Dave Filoni Ahsoka stuff, it's like, guys, this is not going to work. You can't drag this out this long. I mean, nobody even cares in the first place.
Yeah.
This this is bonkers. So I'm trying to think like what would be the way to possibly ever reboot it? And I'm almost, Lauren. I mean, I'm almost at the point of saying that in the 2030s, redo the original movies and give it your best chance. And I know you don't agree with that.
Nope.
But I don't see how you can save the franchise otherwise. It's so damaged.
It,
You
it,
gotta turn the clock all the way back around and say, starting over, if you're going to.
I no, it can't be done. I mean, I'm sorry. It's the
I know
only
it's like trying to reshoot Citizen Kane. You can't do it. Those are classics that can't be touched.
yeah. And it may be that just besides everything that Disney did to ruin all of this, forget about that for a moment. It may be that the culture has just moved on. 45 years is a really good run, and it's more than most series get.
I
The
wanted it to be
way
like Robin Hood, though, Lauren. I
I
wanted it
know,
to, yeah, yeah. We're
but
all letting go.
the way the kids engage with entertainment and the way that people consume their media now, it's different than it used to be, and I just don't see it ever ascending to the heights that it once had. I don't think it can be done at this point.
Well, in positive, to take this into a positive direction, Lauren, at least we have had some good laughs at things like the Vespa kids and the Book of Boba Fett and all that. And I don't know, there's some Schadenfreude, watching Kathleen Kennedy do all this, and there is that, and hope springs eternal. And like we said with Indy, the original movies will always be the original movies. The six that George did will always be there. And you know what? You and I have talked about it. There's a few others we'll take even from the Disney era, although some might find that to be a little bit sacrilegious now. Um, Lauren, there were some comments that came in on the last video, and you wanted to address those. So I'm going to give you a crack at that, and then I'll give my thoughts on it.
Sure. So in a way, I kind of just did, I think. But there were a lot of people, I think, that have the opinion that I'm a Disney apologist or a fence sitter or milk toast, and
Definitely
I
need to go
don't.
back and watch the video where you had some things to say about Kathleen after the Gina Carano stuff.
Yeah. So I wanted to take a moment to make absolutely clear. Um, I'm not a Disney apologist. I'm not a fan of very much the
You're a
Disney's.
closet Mickey lover. Don't come on, Lorne. You got
I've
your little Mickey ears somewhere in the closet hiding them.
I've made very plain there are a few Disney projects that I like. The ones that I like are Rogue One, Andor. I liked Rebels initially when it came out. I don't really like the direction that it's gone since then, especially with Ahsoka. There were a couple of novels that they produced that I actually felt didn't really touch on the sequel trilogy or any of the other stuff and looked as though they could fit into the old EU. That's where my heart is. And I have also been very clear I'm not buying Star Wars products. I'm not on Disney Plus anymore.
All right, now hold for a minute, Lauren, because you've got me thinking. I'm trying to think what I like that Disney has made of Star Wars. That's a great question. So let me hop in and participate with you, and you tell me what you think about this. I like Rogue One. I like Mandalorian season 1. I love Mandalorian season 2. And I think that's it. I think
yeah.
everything else I don't like.
And even for those people, I understand the criticisms that people have of Rogue One, particularly if you prefer the story of Kyle Katarn being responsible for the capture of the Death Star plans and transmitting them to Princess Leia in Operation Skyhook. Kyle Katarn's a beloved character, and so is the Dark Forces and Jedi Knight series. So I totally get it. If
We had to have a Kathleen Kennedy self-insert, though, Lauren. Can't leave those out.
it's true, but that's there for almost any of them. One other thing, and this is maybe going to get me roasted alive, is that I kind of like Solo. I understand it's not a great movie, but that's a personal predilection. I just happen to kind of like some of the elements of it. But I totally understand if you completely want to reject everything Disney. And in fact, in a Twitter post where I was talking about this earlier this week, that's exactly what I said, is that you would have to. There was a point at which I thought if there was a strong visionary that came through, like a Jon Favreau, who was put in charge of Star Wars, that there might be a way to retcon things or to tell stories in such a way that Star Wars could be saved. We're long past that point.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say now. Is
See, Lauren, I had heard that early on the plan would have been to have gently retconned so that we found out that Luke was trying to not reveal the location of Grogu, and that's why he acted the way he did in the sequels, was because he couldn't let anyone know about Grogu and that kind of thing. And I thought, okay, I can see how you could make that work, And now we're so far into just terrible territory. That's like they've closed every possible trail to fix this.
Yeah,
so I understand if Favreau wants to get out. Why would Favreau want to stay? Make the movie and get out.
Yeah, I don't think that they've closed off pretty much every narrative avenue that they had, and I just wanted to make clear to people, it's like I'm not apologizing for Disney, and I am sorry that people were so upset and felt personally betrayed by George endorsing Iger in the upcoming proxy vote. That situation just honestly didn't surprise me that much. I kind of was not surprised when that news came out. So I guess to sum up, I'm not making any apologies for Disney. My job as a critic of Star Wars, though, is to try and point out the things that I like, point out the things that I don't like, and give reasons why. I don't think any of these people that are currently working on this stuff really care about Star Wars or want to make it good. But on the off chance that there is, you have to give some kind of feedback where you tell people, this is what's working, this is what's not, and here's why. And maybe that can take them forward in the future to do better, as their side would say.
I'll tell you my journey on all of this, Lauren, and I come at this, as someone who loves stories and archetypes and myths and what that relays to people. And, for me, The Last Jedi was just awful. It was a betrayal of what Star Wars was all about. It inverted the morality of it. And so one of the only ways that I thought they could actually make the rise of Skywalker or the rise of Palpatine work is if that story had been that Luke had to pass away in order to rally the Force Ghosts, and that we were going to get a battle with all the Force Ghosts or something like that, made manifest to bring back Anakin, the chosen one, to finish off whatever was the darkest evil that Rey had found. And I thought, okay, that is, and I'm not saying that is optimum. I'm saying we had hit a point where things were so bad that I was like, that's what, you're going to have to do something like that to make up for this. And then I saw go ahead, Lauren.
That goes to the fundamental misunderstanding of Star Wars, at least in my opinion, that exists from these people, is that one of the things that Timothy Zahn did, which I thought was one of the smartest things he could have done when he wrote Heir to the Empire, was he gave the ability of Force Ghosts to manifest sort of an expiration date. Because ultimately, if what gives you the ability to manifest is your acceptance of passing into death, then at some point you do have to pass into death. The advantage of a Force Ghost in storytelling is they act as messengers or warnings, or they can utter something of portent that doesn't make sense in the present, but will be of value in the future. But you can't lean on that as a crutch for your character the entire time. And Force Ghosts should absolutely not be able to manifest any kind of ability in the real world. That's actually something that was in one of the original drafts
for the Yoda in The Last Jedi, yeah.
Well, in the original drafts of the Star Wars movies, when George was trying to make the decision of whether or not Ben Kenobi was going to survive, he realized he didn't have anything for him to do at the end of A New Hope. And so he decided, well, I can sacrifice him. And this kind of annoyed Alec Guinness at the time, but he came over to that decision. But there was a thought that eventually, when there was going to be a confrontation with the Emperor, that perhaps the Force Ghosts of Yoda and Obi-Wan could lend Luke a hand in that final battle. And Lucas came to understand it's like, that's a terrible idea because it removes all of the stakes of death. If you can still manifest in the real world in any kind of way, one, you've now weakened your main character. You've had to have him rely on you. And why couldn't they just take care of the Emperor themselves if they could still manifest in the real world?
So I'll tell you why I had come to that conclusion. And the conclusion was due to the fact that I was saying, well, now you've destroyed Luke, so you've got to redeem him in some way. And you've changed it now where Anakin is no longer the chosen one. So you have to fix that. And what we got instead, and so that was putting me in like this convoluted thing where I was thinking, if I were the writer and I'm stuck with this, what do I do? And then we saw what J.J. Abrams would do, which was to take the toy chest and spill out every toy there was, and then every neighbor's kid that had any toy, and then say, if I throw everything at you that you've, in numbers you can't even fathom, then maybe that'll work, and nobody will care about the story anymore. We'll just do that. You like you like this spaceship? What if we gave you 10,000 of them on the same screen? It's like, my gosh, this is asinine. So anyway, Lauren, that was where the first huge damage was, and I said, well, you have damaged Star Wars beyond fixing. But then I thought, well, with the Mandalorian, what they could do is they could set off in a new adventure, and we just set all of that to the side and go on. And where that broke was Gina Carano. And I'm not convinced that there's a way after the Gina Carano thing, after they destroyed all of Favreau's plans for season 3 and Rangers of the New Republic and all that. I don't know that there's a way to fix it. And then Filoni came in and Filoniized everything. And I don't see a path to fix it. So I don't think people care about the Mandalorian movie. It can come out next year or it can come out in 2057. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I think that's another place where they cut off all of the narrative possibilities that they had. Their place to go was with Din and Grogu being separated and Grogu learning about the Jedi with Luke. And when they took away that possibility in the Book of Boba Fett, it killed all of the momentum once again. It got even worse in season 3. So I think if you wanted to retain the Mandalorian in your personal headcanon, you just have to end it at season 2.
Yeah,
that's the only way it works, I think.
I totally agree. It's a really sad thing. The reason I say in this video that for me, and I know you disagree, that I think, maybe in the 2030s you could reboot the whole thing is because that's the only way that Batman stays around. You got to reboot that. It's the only way Superman stays around. Maybe ultimately that's the only way that Luke Skywalker stays around, or maybe it's best to leave it in the past. But they have destroyed the original iterations. They've just destroyed them.
I would agree with you if I thought that there was a younger generation that was interested in Star Wars. But I honestly don't think there is. I think all that's left now is the older fans, and that includes the prequel fans as well, a pre-sequel trilogy. And they have their own reasons for hanging on to it and loving it. But that's not what the modern day is apparently about. And so I don't know if you have got enough younger people to make a nostalgia play in the future.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. We're making another Superman movie, so you just never know. Lauren, I want to thank you for coming on. I love the conversations. I love thinking deeply about these things. I hate that sometimes the content you and I are talking about is so damaged. It doesn't
Bleak.
give us much. Yeah, it's very bleak. But on a positive note, in a good way, I think it's a great juxtaposition as to what you do with the genre guys, because you guys actually get to cover great, awesome movies. And Lauren, I hear from LW Ghost, your co-pilot, along with Mr. Tables, you were watching a Bollywood movie. Am I going to seriously put up a member-exclusive Bollywood analysis?
Without subtitles, yeah.
Oh my gosh, Lord, what are you guys? All right, folks. Happy membership. We're going to see. I hear that it was LW Ghost's decision to do this one, and I will give him the benefit of the doubt. He's fantastic. We'll see how it goes. Lauren, thanks for stopping by, and folks, thank you for stopping by. like, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms, it's the notification bell, drop a comment down below, let us know your thoughts. I'm sure you have many after this conversation. And yes, folks, if you're watching this on the day of release, it is a very full week. We'll run the schedule at the end of the video so you know where to go to find what's going on with Disney and the shareholders meeting. But Tuesday at noon Eastern, we do the Pro Show just like always. Don't miss it. There's also a special edition of the Valiant Renegade Show coming out Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, as there will be a response with all of that video game stuff that you may have heard about. Folks, we're done. We're out. It's over. But we will be back. We will return. Same pro place, same pro time. You'll be there, I hope. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun. Hey folks, Wednesday, April 3rd is the Disney shareholders meeting where we find out if Nelson Peltz has a seat on the board or if the proxy war continues on. Coverage begins at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time with Culture Casino. Moving right over to the Pro Channel, a special edition of the Pro Show, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern, and then we go to Valiant Renegade for live coverage, 1 p.m. Eastern until who knows when. It is the big day for Disney.